Florida is known for its world class beaches, famous theme parks, and year round sunshine, not to mention the perks of coastal living. It's no wonder so many people move here. But what might surprise you is that despite all of these amazing things, more and more people are packing up and leaving Florida.
I'm leaving!
In today's video, we're going to dive into the surprising and maybe not so surprising reasons why people are saying goodbye to the Sunshine State. By the end, you'll get a better look at the flip side of paradise, helping you to decide if Florida is truly the right place for you. Just to make sure you guys understand, I am a native Floridian and I love my state. I love the freedom. I love the fact that we have sunshine year round. There are some things that I don't like. I hate, and I literally mean hate the bugs. They can be almost demonic. And I hate the heat and humidity. But for the most part, I love Florida and I can't see myself living anyplace else.
I'm not leaving.
Now, one of the big complaints that we've gotten has been hurricanes. Hurricanes have been a major issue for a lot of people that have moved here. And bear in mind, a lot of people moved here during COVID. That's when we had this explosion of population. And a lot of people weren't really ready for hurricanes. They thought they were, but after Milton and Helene, they found out that it just wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And especially those folks living on the coastal areas, they were decimated all the way from Cedar Key down to Naples. I mean, it was just a mess. And people lost their livelihoods, they lost their homes, they lost everything. And it's truly a shame. So hurricanes are something that I can understand. I mean, I've lived here my whole life. I've been through countless hurricanes. Living in the middle of the state, which is the Polk County area, which is the Lakeland, Winter Haven, that area there is not nearly as bad because you don't get the serious winds and damage most of the time from hurricanes because most of the time they'll kind of peter out before they get here. But still, I can kind of understand the concern. I've been through enough of them that I know that it's not an issue for me living where I live. The next thing is skyrocketing homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance has gone through the roof because of all the natural disasters and all the payouts and everything else. We've seen a rise in homeowners insurance like we've never seen in the past few years. And a lot of people are getting kicked out of their insurance, and a lot of insurance companies are refusing to write new insurance policies. And we don't really know the solvency of the government run insurance company, which is Citizens. And so there's a lot of trepidation when it comes to the high insurance costs and what's going to happen if you get the wrong policy. Even if you're just trying to save some money, sometimes that saving you money can really cause you problems in the end because you're not getting the kind of coverage that you need. And so we've seen people paying as much as $5, $6, $8,000 in insurance when that's just way too over the top, and we're hoping that something will get done about that. Now, I know that with Citizens, most of my customers are paying between $2,000 and $2,500 for an average home, and so at least that's something that that you can look at. But I can't really tell you what their policies state and whether or not the policies are going to be good for them. If you're looking at moving to Florida, despite everything that we've just talked about, just go to talkwithvince.com and get on my calendar and let's chat. Let's have a conversation and let's see what we can do to make that move just a little bit easier. Now, like I said before, overcrowding has been a big problem. Overcrowding and traffic congestion. We've seen so many people move into the state during COVID, and a lot of municipalities just don't have the infrastructure to be able to deal with all of that. We're seeing more roads that are getting kind of like run down, potholes, and we're seeing more traffic accidents and more traffic jams, and it's just gotten kind of crazy. It's not everywhere. It's a lot of places. I would probably say 70% of the urban areas in the state are overcrowded, and the traffic congestion is just terrible. And so that's something that you have to kind of look at if Florida is a place that you're thinking about moving to. Now, like I said, it's not everywhere. There are places in Florida, smaller towns, smaller municipalities where you can find um, what you're looking for, close enough to an urban site, but not so overcrowded that you have to worry about that. But it's still something that I've heard my customers talk to me about. The next is soaring HOA fees. We've seen all along the coast, especially with condos and in other areas, that HOA fees have just gone through the roof. Now, a lot of the new communities have very small HOA fees, but they're making up for it with the community development fees or the CDD fees. And not everybody wants to live in a, an area where they have to pay a community development fee. But HOA fees have risen in certain areas. In other areas, they've stayed fairly neutral. Those areas have not been hit as hard as, say, Hillsborough County or Orange County, where Tampa and Orlando are, and other areas of Florida like Jacksonville and Pensacola and Miami. And so we've seen a ton of HOA fees just go through the roof. It's just going to be something where you're going to have to determine whether or not what they're giving you in terms of value is worth the fees that they're charging. And maybe that's just not going to be a great place for you. Now, the next thing is really interesting, and that's surging property taxes. People have been talking about property taxes now for a while. Um, Unfortunately, I can remember in Pasco County, a buddy of mine who at the time was a firefighter. He's now a fire chief and he's going to be retiring soon. But I can remember when they built their house, and I was just there. I was there at their house in Pasco a few weeks ago. Um, at one point during the time that they've been living there, all of a sudden, Pasco County decided to raise property taxes by like 60%, and their property taxes went up to over $10,000, which was absolutely ridiculous. And it caused a revolt. People went ape. And they came up against the county, and the county backed down and they lowered the property taxes. Now, the property taxes are still high, don't get me wrong. But if you're coming from another state, property taxes in your state may be higher, they may be lower, and that's something you have to think about. Just recently, Governor DeSantis decided to field the idea that maybe we should get rid of property taxes. That could be a good idea. It may not be. Do me a favor, comment below and let me know if you think that getting rid of property taxes in Florida would be a good idea and why, or why not. But he's thinking about doing something else. Now, what that something else is, this may end up being a great next video. I don't know. But he could be raising, taxes on goods and services. He could be doing any number of things. But if he does get rid of property taxes, it's going to alleviate a lot of problems for a lot of the folks that have come here from other states. And it's going to make Florida a lot more um, appealing, which could also lead to more people coming into the state of Florida, causing more congestion, more traffic, and more everything else. So we'll just have to kind of stay tuned and see what happens. If you'd like to see a video on that, go ahead and just drop me a comment below. Next thing is the political climate. The political climate in Florida has changed dramatically since the last election. We have gone from a fairly, you know, I'm going to say kind of a gray state where it could go one way or the other to a completely red state. And because it's a completely red state, a lot of people have had a very big issue with that. I've got a couple of customers that have told me that they're not going to move into certain areas because when they drove through to take a look around there, all they saw was Trump flags, and they were like, "Nope, I'm not going to do that." I don't care what you voted. I don't care how you voted. I don't care who you voted for. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm here to help you find a great area to live in and a great home. The political side of Florida, Florida has always leaned more right than left, other than, the places that you would expect, like the urban places, urban centers like Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, of course. They're going to lean a lot more left, but for the most part, Florida has been pretty right leaning. And we have a lot of right leaning laws, and a lot of people just don't like that. I'm comfortable with it. I've been here for, my whole life. And so it doesn't bother me, but that could, move you in a different direction. I don't know. If you're still thinking of Florida, I'm here. So the next thing and the last thing is because a lot of people are just lonely and homesick. They moved here thinking that their family was going to stay here, and then their family left and went back up north or wherever. And now they're here by themselves. They haven't been able to really fit in. They don't have a good social structure. And so they just they're tired of being alone, and they're tired of being homesick. Now, for a lot of my customers that have come here, they came here because they wanted more religious freedom. They were coming to me during that time when other states and countries like Canada were restricting people for not having, taken the vaccine, or, they were limiting prayer and all this other craziness. They came here looking for a place that they could worship and they could feel comfortable, whether they were Jewish, whether they were Christian or whatever. And I think they found that here. Now, other folks just have not been able to fit in. And I get that. And, and I feel bad for them, but if that's you, there are plenty of synagogues, there are plenty of churches around here that you can fit into, that you can volunteer in, and that you can get fed and really, spiritually kind of come alive. That's going to be up to you. And if you don't really feel it and you don't really see that that's going to happen for you, I get it, and I'm sorry to see you go. So that's pretty much what I've got for you on this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you comment, hope you like, share, and I hope you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.